So, little introduction. I'm Blythe Beaumont. I was a two-year student at the Delaware Area Career Center in digital design, and this is my legacy project. Without further ado, welcome to How to Nail Your BPA presentation. So, before we begin in the actual presentation, there's a lot of other things that go into a presentation besides really nice slides or wording your presentation correctly. For example, your outfit. These are some examples of some really good outfits. These are actually my BPA teammates, what they used and what they wore. When you're within a team, you want to look cohesive. So matching your outfits, making them look coherent and looking good as a team is really important. It shows the judges that you're unified and that you understand that this is important and you guys came together to look professional, not only individually, but look professional as a team. For guys, I would recommend a full suit and tie. It seems like a lot, but it's definitely worth it, and it's always good to have a suit and tie just on hand anyway. For girls, you can choose to go a little more feminine, or you can choose to go a little more masculine. For my group, we chose to go a little more feminine. We had pencil skirts, making sure that pencil skirts are actually at the right length, and no slits, no fun patterns, just simple pencil skirts will do the best. Now that we've talked about our outfits, let's talk a little bit about our personalities. You want to make sure that you don't seem like a robot when you walk into that room. When you step into that room, you want to be confident. Confidence will shine through in your personality and through your presentation. And judges love that. Judges love when they can be real with a student. They want to talk to them like they're a real professional in the workforce. They understand that you're going to mess up. They understand that things are going to go wrong, technical difficulties, little things like that. So laughing those things off and getting over it is really important. Now before we begin going into the actual presentations itself, I want to let you know that the presentation template that I have created, this is just a way for you to get ideas. The color scheme is BPA geared, and it is totally a good presentation for you to use in your BPA presentation. But if you're like my group, we had a totally different color scheme than BPA, and if we use a BPA color scheme, it wouldn't have worked at all for our presentation. So, like I said, this is purely for you to get ideas and a good grip on what a good outline for a presentation should be. So now let's start with the title slide. For the title slide, I gave you two different options. One is if you don't have a logo for your presentation, maybe you didn't need a logo because your competition is a little different than others, this would be one for you to use. And then for the second option, I gave you one which has a place for your logo. Having your logo stand out on that very first slide is letting the judges know this is who we are, this is what we created, this is the brand we want to go with. It's a really good way to start a presentation, and it's a really solid way to let the judges know that you took time in not only the actual product, but the branding process, which we'll get into very soon. So after you've introduced who you are as a team, it's time to introduce who you are as individuals. For the slide I gave you, I wanted to give you something which is something that I used for my team. We took all of our pictures, which we took headshots for, and we laid them all out. For our presentation, we made sure to lay them out to the direction that we were standing. The two people on the right, we had those two people standing on the right. For the two people on the left, we had those two people standing on the left. Next to our pictures, we had our names. We just used our first names, and we put down our role. Establishing your role is so important. Assigning roles is one of the first steps you should do as a team. You should all sit down and decide who's in what place. So now that you've introduced all four of you, you want to start with whoever came first in your actual production of the video. For me, I came first because I was the producer. For your individual slide, I would recommend restating who you are. For me, on my slide, my actual presentation was, once again, my name is Blythe, and as the producer, my main job was to keep my team in line in order to meet our deadlines, organize the talent, and make executive decisions on our project. So all I did there was restate my name, restate my role, and then go into what I did. So after the producer has gone, the next thing you want to do is talk about your actual schedule. The main thing that I would recommend for talking about your pre-production schedule would probably be talking about your storyboard. Storyboarding is supposed to be the one thing that you do first, and for my group, we storyboarded last. We did go into it having a loose storyboard in our heads, but that's not what you're supposed to be doing. Storyboarding in your pre-production is one of the most important things you can talk about. It is something that judges really appreciate, and having a good storyboard in your presentation or turning in a good storyboard can actually get you more points on your technical score. Now, this is where you talk about your branding process. The branding process is something that I don't think a lot of teams focus on, but when my team focused on it, it was very beneficial to us. Talking about your branding process is so important because it talks about not only pre-production, but the transition into your actual production. How you took something and you created this whole idea and how you brought it to life. So this is where the lead designer is going to come in. So for my team, that was Ian Campbell. We focused so much time and energy into our logo, and that's what he was talking about. He restated his name, he restated his role, and talked about what he did. Another really important thing when you're talking about your branding process is showing some sketches. Showing sketches is a perfect way to outline your thought process. It shows that you put time and effort into the pre-production schedule. Now that we're halfway through, this is where I recommend showing your video. It not only helps the judges understand what your whole product is for, but it also helps them kind of take a mental break in your presentation and judging. So now you're going to transition into your actual stories. This is where the creative comes in. For my team, the creative was Autumn Emhoff. BPA is not about hitting everything perfectly. It's about taking students and putting them in a professional environment. And in a professional environment, things are gonna go wrong. So the creative is somebody who talks about those things and talks about the real reason of why you're doing that. So next, you're just gonna talk about your stories. Talk about why you chose that story, why you chose to film them a certain way, the feel of how you wanted it to come off, and personal connections to that story and how you found the stories and why you chose that story overall. Now we're going to be getting into technology. One of the big things that BPA talks about is technology and how you used it to create your project. Normally on rubrics, it will say something like, how did you use innovative technology in your project? This is where the technical director comes in. For our technical directors out there, you're going to talk about how you maintain the creative vision while making sure you are using proper equipment and using innovative technology to really bring the project to life. So when you're talking about what equipment you use, you want to include anything and everything you can. First, talk about production, what cameras you used, what audio equipment you used, any switchers, rigs, gimbals, what studios you used, what audio channels you used, just so that the judges know that all bases are covered. Now you're going to talk about how you took everything from the actual production and you're using that footage that you got from it and you're putting it into editing software, audio software, color grading. Everything you used in post-production, talk about it. Now that you've talked about everything, you've covered all the bases, now you're going to talk about your actual BPA journey. This is where you wrap everything up and this is where you be real with the judges. Talk about how things didn't always go as planned. They're going to ask you that question anyway. I would recommend using the first person that talked in the presentation for this slide. They're going to be the last person to talk about everything. Having that first person talk is going to give a full circle feel. For my group, that was me. What I said was, overall, our BPA journey has definitely had its ups and downs, but we've been able to work within our team, use our different assets in order to stay in control and create a product that we're all very satisfied with. Then I went into, once again, we are 740 News, and at this time, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Opening the floor to questions is going to be so important, and you're also going to land on your last slide here. For this slide, I would recommend a picture collage. A picture collage is a great way to show that everything is finished, the presentation is done, and you're ready to open the floor to questions. For your picture collage, I would recommend using pictures from every step of the way. Pre-production, production, post-production, and team pictures. Show the fun times in BPA. So to wrap everything up, BPA presentations are all about confidence. For my team, one of the things we did for creating our individual slides, we just looked at each other and we said, what did you do? If I took this presentation away and I was a stranger sitting in front of you and I asked you what you did for this project, would you know? And that's how we nailed our presentation. And I think with a few tips and tricks from the presentation template that I created and this video, you can nail your presentation too. So good luck. And I can tell you right now that BPA will be one of the most rewarding things you will ever do.